Good Friday morning, and thanks for joining us here on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Alicia Lewis. Breaking news from overnight out of Minneapolis, a triple shooting at Chicago and Franklin just after midnight. Police tell us one man died and two other men were injured. Right now, we're waiting to hear more from police about what led up to the shooting and if they're looking for a suspect. We'll update you as soon as we learn any new details. Also breaking overnight, we are live from our nation's capital, where the fate of funding for the Department of Homeland Security now lies with the House of Representatives. The Senate sending them the bill that would fund DHS minus ICE and Border Patrol. President Trump also saying that he would sign an order to get TSA workers paid. Alice Barr's in Washington with the details.
Hi there. Negotiations over Homeland Security funding have seesawed throughout the week, with the pressure only building as airport lines have been growing. And now there's hope this surprise overnight vote will finally bring relief. In a dramatic middle-of-the-night move, the Senate voting to fund the Department of Homeland Security, except for immigration enforcement under ICE. It passed unanimously after weeks of haggling, despite containing none of the ICE reforms Democrats had been holding out for. The two parties still pointing fingers.
The Democrats just kept moving the goalposts. And today, they just walked away.
This could have been accomplished weeks ago if Republicans hadn't stood in the way.
The vote follows an announcement from President Trump that he would sign an order to immediately pay TSA workers after weeks without a paycheck during the partial government shutdown led to serious staffing shortages and the longest airport wait times on record.
We missed our flight. We had a 6-hour layover, and unfortunately we were unable to make our connection because of delays.
It just feels like America, man. You don't experience this in a lot of other countries, and I just feel like it's unacceptable.
The House still has to act before TSA and other agencies like the Coast Guard and FEMA can get fully back up and running. And House Republican leadership has previously objected to breaking ICE out of DHS funding. Congress is under pressure to seal the deal before boarding planes for a 2-week recess today in airports battered by the back and forth. The Senate's top Democrat said after the vote his party would still fight hard for ICE reforms and that there would be opportunities. But the top Republican shot that down, saying that ship had sailed and that it's a good possibility Republicans will move to pass ICE funding through a reconciliation process that does not require votes from Democrats. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
This morning, final preparations are underway ahead of tomorrow's nationwide No Kings rallies. The flagship demonstration will be in St. Paul, expected to draw nearly 100,000 protesters. Our Audrey Russo's at the state capitol, where the main event will take place.
Yeah, St. Paul police tell us that they've been working on their security plan for a month for this event, because they're not only in charge of securing the Capitol grounds where the main event is going to be happening at 2 p.m. They've also got to monitor 3 rallies and sort of kickoff marches that'll eventually culminate here on the Capitol grounds. So St. Paul's deputy police chief tells us that they're going to have about 300 law enforcement officers moving along those marching routes. Now here on your screen, you'll see tomorrow's road closures. Now, the blue portions of Kellogg, John Ireland Boulevard, Wabasha, and Rondo will be closed for a few hours, around 11:45 to 1:30. Now, the red streets immediately around the Capitol complex will be closed for the majority of Saturday, and that is where National No Kings organizers are expecting close to 100,000 people.
Expected to be the next record-breaking largest single-day nonviolent protest in American history.
It is our responsibility to continue to resist.
And this is just one of 3,000 No Kings rallies happening across the country. There's even a few smaller ones happening here in Minnesota, including Stillwater, Duluth, and Alexandria. Back to you.
This morning, President Trump is once again pushing back the deadline for Iran to fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz before the U.S. would begin targeting Iran's power plants. The pause on those strikes was set to expire today. Now, Trump says he's delaying it until April 6 as the talks are ongoing, which the president says are going well. Let's take you live to the White House right now, where today Vice President J.D. Vance will host the first meeting of the president's anti-fraud task force. President Trump announced the task force last month in his State of the Union address, saying it's aimed at reducing federal spending by identifying misuse of funds. This comes as the Trump administration targets Minnesota's ongoing fraud allegations. The task force vowing to also focus on other states and prosecute fraudsters. Developing this morning, Minnesota's rural hospitals are facing dire financial hurdles, and the CEO says it's all because of a technical issue with a new program. Jennifer Hoff is here to explain.
In Onamia, there are some 700 residents in the small town, but only one hospital.
This is patient accounts or the billing office.
Where Beverly Inslee was not born born, but has now worked for 3 decades, tasked with checking the status of Medicare claims.
One by one, line by line.
That since the new year, the federal agency has mostly rejected, withholding nearly $3 million in reimbursements to the Mille Lacs health system alone.
Yeah, it's difficult.
The problem stemming from a payment processing change the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services implemented last summer, according to the hospital's CEO, Andy Knutson, calling it a technical issue with the software system now not enrolling its providers means bills can't get paid.
These are legitimate costs that we've been billing the same way for years, and now that Medicare is telling us that it's incorrect, even though we've been doing it the same way for 70 years. We can't get a good answer for why this is happening.
What's worse?
It's bad.
Without a fix, Knutson says the hospital could close in a matter of weeks.
We're at the nurses' station, so they take care of all of our patients.
A place that employs more than 400 people.
Takes everyone.
And is 40 miles from the next closest hospital, called Critical Access for rural areas that rely on this billing method. Knutson says is likely impacting more than 100 of those kinds of hospitals across the state. And eventually, their patients.
We can't fail, right? We can't fail. I can't fail my employees. I can't fail the community. I can't fail my patients. So we're going to keep trying and try to get this fixed.
A burden everyone here is carrying.
It's huge.
One even Beverly Inslee says she didn't see coming.
This is much more than a job. This is my community. This is my family's welfare.
Also this morning, Twin Cities lawyers are filing what they're calling the first wave of class action lawsuits against ICE following Operation Metro Surge. They claim federal law enforcement violated the constitutional rights of residents who were peacefully protesting, saying some were assaulted, verbally abused, and detained illegally. We reached out to the Department of Homeland Security but have not heard back. We have brand new video this morning into the newsroom from the scene of a messy crash on 494 earlier this week. Take a look. It happened on eastbound 494 Tuesday night between Cedar and Highway 77 in Richfield. A semi hauling steel scaffolding hit a bridge, scattering them all across the roadway. You see it there. Now take a look at these still frames. One of those scaffolding broke through this windshield of a car driving behind the semi. Absolutely terrifying. You can see it landed in front of the passenger seat. That driver was taken to the hospital but is expected to be okay. The bridge was cleared of any damage as well, and the crash is still under investigation. This morning, lawmakers are pumping the brakes on a bill that could have lowered your license tab fees. In Minnesota, how much you pay for your tabs depends on the age and value of your vehicle. Under current law, a new vehicle loses value slower than Kelley Blue Book estimates. Now, the new bill would have allowed cars to depreciate more quickly in the state's records to make you pay less. But Democrats in the Transportation Committee voted against the bill, saying that it would cost the state nearly $1 billion.
Individual people with their individual cars are getting priced out of the state.
How could this work in reality? You know this is wrong. You know that we can't do this.
Now, each state has its own way of calculating tab fees. Over in Wisconsin and Illinois, for example, they have a flat rate ranging from $85 in Wisconsin to about $150 in Illinois. All right, stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.